Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. What we're going to talk about today is how precipitation affects the climate. First, I want to do a little bit of a review today on what we're looking at. So what causes climate? Climate is the name for just as a review part, climate is the name of general conditions of temperature and precipitation for an area over a longer period of time. Climate of any region of the earth is determined by two basic factors, temperature and precipitation. We talked about temperature last time, and there was three things: latitude, elevation, and precipitation. Presence of oceans affect climate. We went into quite a bit of depth, and I had some videos on that too. If you didn't get a chance to look at those videos, please do. So we talked about the warm Gulf Stream and the cold California current. Anyway, so factors that affect precipitation. There's two factors that do that, and that is prevailing winds and mountain ranges. We all know the earth turns, and part of that turning causes wind to blow. And as our earth rotates toward the west, the wind comes from the west toward us. So that would be kind of a prevailing wind. The prevailing wind is any wind in that area that is normal, okay? Most often, the wind that blows the most often from there. Sometimes here in Salt Lake, we can get winds coming from the north, south, east, west, wherever, but that's not our general prevailing wind. Our general prevailing winds are from the west. And where we're located on the globe, if we're by an ocean or not by an ocean, affects us. So we live in a warm area, so we have warm air mostly that comes in throughout the summertime and cold air in the wintertime, but it's usually pretty dry. The reason it's dry is because we're not real by any large bodies of water, except the Great Salt Lake, and sometimes we get some lake effect with that. But that's only during certain cyclonic events that we get in the winter. Anyway, so a couple things we need to be aware of. Warm air holds more moisture than cold air. So warm air holds more moisture than cold air. As warm air rises, it cools and can't hold as much moisture. So if you have a mass of air and it cools, the moisture in it it won't hold the moisture as well. So because it's cooling off, and it'll precipitate. That's how the water comes out of it. So different things that affect that. The direction the prevailing wind blows also affects the amount of moisture it carries. So if you're on the Oregon coast where they get a lot of rain, Washington, they get a lot of rain, and the reason they do is because there's a cold air coming off the Pacific with a lot of moisture in it. Then it hits the land, then it has to, the warm air has to rise, and it cools, and it creates a lot of rainfall there. I think over 100 inches a year. Anyway, so how much precipitation? Can you talk today? How much precipitation do you think areas received in the path of prevailing winds blowing from an island? Well, islands get more precipitation than other places because they have weather around them, whereas a landlocked place like Utah doesn't get as much precipitation because it's pretty much a dry area or a desert. The same thing happens in the Sierras in Nevada and Africa, where this dry air keeps blowing across the Sierra, and it's just dry air. So they might not get rain for a couple of years. It's just extremely dry. Then if we look at mountain ranges here, the amount of precipitation in a particular location also affects mountain ranges. So we're talking about warm air holds more moisture than cold air, but as you rise in elevation, the air gets colder. So as the air rises and cools, it can't hold as much precipitation, so it lets the moisture go. This is called the windward side, and the precipitation comes out. So like in this picture here, figure 6. This is a rainy climate on the windward slope of the mountain range because the moist air rises, cools, and forms a rain cloud. Moist air moving down the leeward side is a desert climate. So, what's this mean? Well, if we look at the Pacific Northwest, all the moisture is getting dumped, but as that air mass comes down the other side, here, it warms up again and it'll hold moisture, but there's no more moisture for it to hold, so it hangs on to it. So let's jump down here. On the west coast of the United States, the range called the Sierra Nevadas, area to the west of the Sierra Nevadas, the windward side, receives a large amount of precipitation from the prevailing winds, which blows in from the Pacific Ocean. Land areas east of the Sierra Nevadas, the leeward side, receive little precipitation because the prevailing winds have lost most of their moisture by the time they cross the mountain range. The result of the rain-shadowed desert called the Great Basin on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Great Basin extends west from Washington State into Nevada and Utah. So this is us. Now we have a little something going on here in Utah that makes us, as they say, the greatest snow on earth. And what's going on there is with the greatest snow on earth. In the wintertime, we get something called the lake effect. Those storms come across the lake and pick up moisture coming off the lake, that warm moisture coming off the lake, even though it's wintertime, it's warm compared to the air coming in. And it picks that moisture up and cools it and dumps it over on the Wasatch Mountains. That's how we can get 500 to 700 inches of snow 10 miles outside of Salt Lake. In Salt Lake, we can be playing golf, and because it's the elevation. As that air rises up over the Wasatch, just like this picture here, that air rises, say this is the Wasatch, it rises up over the Wasatch, it dumps all that snow here, then on the other side it's fairly dry. Anyway, but that's caused by a lake effect we get here. So anyway, that's pretty much the two things that cause precipitation are mountain ranges and prevailing winds. Where's your wind come from? Like the Sierras, if it just circles around and it's just dry air, you're not going to get any wind. There's places in South America that has a huge amount of rainfall, and other places they might not get rain every 20 years. It's amazing. But anyway, so hopefully that answers some of your questions. Remember, you can always email me at jess.carmody@jordandistrict.org. If you have any questions, I'm here to help you. You guys have a wonderful day. Stay healthy and be careful out there.